but it is definitely in design and choices made that certainly throw off the Terrans of that scene, who usually don't play against Latin Americans, right? So eGGz and Special would constantly get a surprising upset against them because these Zerg players are just weird, man. So kind of a guy I'm talking about in the top left, right? He is the blue Zerg eGGz.
And in the bottom right-hand corner, our red Protoss player, PattyMac.
So that's, I was talking about ZVT just because that was the best example I can give how Special and eGGz are considered top tier and then lost against people that you would never see in the international scene, you know, not in international events. So PattyMac, I would say, first of all, great kid, really good sense of humor, fun Protoss player to watch as well, and that was them debating about what unit they could not make in chat was showing that. But I think he is kind of like a typically good Protoss, and he might be a little shocked by how Egg plays as well. Like, PattyMac's not as good as Special or eGGz, but might get tripped up in the same fashion.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of down for that. eGGz is always coming up with very fun things, plays that little bit kind of offbeat right, and has that little bit of an aggressive nature too, with those kind of weirder strategies, weirder styles, weirder timing. So whenever you're trying to be like, you know, ahead of yourself and thinking, okay, I'm kind of prepared for this, I'm prepared for that, then eGGz is like, no, I'm not prepared for this one, I've scrambled it up today. And then you kind of like super like, wait, what? That's not meant to be happening. So honestly, this is one of those series where I feel like we just have to see how it plays out, because PattyMac, you know, I think is kind of, you know, usually kind of down and straight and now and pretty simple, you know, when it comes to kind of what he does. He's pretty honest and does the Protoss things that we expect. But eGGz really can just mix it up and, like I say, throw things all over the place here.
I love that you made an unintended pun, I think.
That was absolutely intentional.
Egg can really...
Oh,
okay, good. Amazing.
Yes.
All right, let me just give you a little bit of applause for that one then, because it was intentional.
Thank you,
He can
ZG.
scramble it up, man.
Look, back in the WESG days, I had to cast Egg versus eGGz. We did every single egg pun under the sun, so it was... I know all of them at this point.
Well, apparently the last time these two played, because they have, but it was 3 years ago. And in the span, they played all of the games they've ever played in the span of 6 months, which is very unique. I don't know why that happened, but it did. And then obviously they were in different regions for the, you know, EPT circuit that has been established since 2020. So, yeah, I still would say that I really don't know what to expect from these two. I think they both have stayed fairly similar in their styles. The matchups have changed. PattyMac certainly far more likely to do some mass Blinkstalker stuff than he was in 2020. And I think he literally said in that funny chat they two were having, if you say no stalkers, then I automatically lose. So I think I'm very much expecting stalkers.
He is doing the PattyMac, though, I think is what they call this in the Protoss group. Which is the 3 gates into the Twilight Council.
It's unique, man.
Yeah, it is a build. I kind of forgot about this until I just saw him doing it. I'm like, oh yeah. Austin ranted at me about this for like 5 minutes about the PattyMac and how brilliant it was. And yet, for the whole 5 minutes, he didn't give me one single reason why it was so great. So, like, it's one of them builds. It's great, but we don't really know why still. So, let's see if he can show us why across the course of this game.
I think that's Hearthstone, though. That's what makes him so good about casting, like, just kind of random games.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, this is amazing. You do this usually, but this is different. Amazing.
Oh my god, eGGz is catching all the probes, by the way. That's 2 probes going down early, so pretty good going, right? Delaying that. There's the glaives. That's the whole point of this. You get a lot of adepts early. Your glaives is going to be later, but you still have the units to kind of force a few units out, and then you just have a lot of adepts because you've been building them for such a long time. That's generally the plan here, so that's the direction we're taking this at the moment. Adepts wander the way to the upper left, and just gotta be careful initially. You don't want to lose too many of these if you've got glaives coming up as the follow-up.
Right, then it's not going to be a 1-2 punch. It's going to be a slap and then maybe a bit of a punch. You want that punch to be as hard as you can get it, and with eGGz even getting supply blocked, I guess canceled something after making a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I was gonna say it's like if you punch him the first time, you break your knuckles, so then you punch him the second time, it's not really as good, right? It's not as strong.
Ow. Yeah, because you are hurting yourself. That's true. PattyMac also going into the Dark Shrine follow-up. Now, there will be a lair. I think there is at least a couple of Spore Crawlers, so that shouldn't get damaged just for the sake of being invisible. But as always, if you're out of position, if you're already dying to Adepts as well, then the DTs can be the finishing blow.
Yeah, DTs can be nasty, even if you have like some amount of prep ready for it, because when you're already, like you say, running around after Adepts, you're not exactly set up perfectly like you imagine or envision yourself being. The Adepts, yeah, good enough numbers to take on Roaches in low numbers too, and that's why this is kind of cute, because you can run on forward, and I would have thought he may have gotten a couple more Roaches already before the Lings surround, but now he will shade, and now you're playing catch-up. The Roaches were fighting over there. If the Roaches are fighting over there, it means they are not chasing you down, and so you have a lot more freedom with these Adepts. And this is where PattyMac's going to start finding a good bit of value for himself. That's a Roach and a group of Lings. That ain't enough to fight against this at all. And, well, these Adepts continue to have a good time. The extra Roach is showing up, but this is maybe where... I was going to say maybe we're very close to seeing the DTs arriving. We're not there just yet. Dark Shrine only just finished. A couple of Adepts show up on this base, but that's the beauty of the spine. You force at least the manual targeting of those Adepts.
Right, eventually PattyMac actually noticed and fixed it up. So in total, every attack combined, it is going to be 12 drones. That's okay. I mean, the drone count right now looks absolutely terrible for eggs, but then you do look at the army supply and you gotta be at least wary of the counterattack, which is also one reason to have the Dark Shrine follow-up. If they don't just automatically make an Overseer, which, yeah, eggs hasn't, then there's zero worry, even if it was something like a 50 army supply difference. 20 was probably already handleable. Easily handled. No.
No? Okay.
Handleable.
Handleable.
No, it was already manageable, even without the Dark Shrine, but of course that's going to help out, and still more harassment, but Lings entering into the main and natural. That's a mistake there from PattyMac.
Okay, so we've got DTs all over the place, we've got Lings all over the place, and this is going to be a bit of a mess for the next few moments. And Stalkers and DT do turn the Roaches away at least. It's just a matter of cleaning up these Lings. If he was walled on the natural, this would be absolutely golden for PattyMac, and he'd be on his way to a victory. Probably still is, I think. He's still doing a lot of damage. These drones are not mining. A lot of the probes are not, but he's much faster to clean up these Lings than those DTs are being cleaned up.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. I mean, overall, with all the droning that was happening, I think during some of this harassment, Eggs does manage to keep his head above water. 52 drones to 57 probes, but although you are allowed to be a little more, in line together as Protoss and Zerg worker-wise, still doesn't feel very good. If Eggs is going to try and power up on an army now to get a counterattack and, finally show PattyMac that he can also be scary, it's not really all that scary, to be honest. It's when the tiny little dog comes up barking at you. It's just not a very big army, and it's not going to be sustained, that's for sure. Even if it does eventually get decently sized, there won't be an economy to replace all the expensive Banelings, for instance, that Eggs is going to be trying to get into.
Yeah, dropping that Baneling nest down. A lot of Zerglings making their way out down to the south side of the map, so a lot of Lings ready to run in toward the third and see if they can do something, but they decide not to just yet, and unfortunately that means they might get caught by some of these Stalkers and the Colossus. PattyMac, it's an odd army to move out with. You might be feeling good, but this is one way I can see you losing the game, because it's not very often you see one Colossus and 8 Stalkers being like the army to get the job done.
Usually not. There's really no escape path for these units, especially with the Stalkers not having Blink. And the Colossus is always a goner. So you would at least see, say, 3 or 4 sentries just to try and get some force fields down to buy time. If you really wanted to do this. But you also don't really have to, I would say. PattyMac is in a very comfortable position, whether he realizes it or not. But I mean, with all the drone running around after the DTs, I'd expect that PattyMac does know, and just is also very cognizant that he still needs to power up on his army a little bit more. He's invested so much into production, technology, and buildings that we don't see the advantage PattyMac has in the army supply yet. So, PattyMac, worst thing he could do is try and move out right now before he's really prepared.
Yeah, just sit back. You've got such a good worker lead. You're just going to get more and more ahead unless Eggs does something here, really. And even if Eggs goes drone crazy and no units at all, you're also just, that's still him just catching up, never mind taking a lead. So you're fine just to build up and then go with a large army, go with something better, go with all your upgrades. So, very happy to see him sit back and, a bit of Lingbane preps to potentially go and attack on in. This sort of army moving across, I like that a lot more. Prism's obviously on the way too, so you can have a bit more micro potential. And we'll see if this can get the job done, as PattyMac seems to think it's going to be enough.
really good army now that there's 3 Colossus and Blink is finishing up. I'd still prefer Sentries in this, right? You almost never see...
At least a few.
Yeah, Colossus without any sentries. Banelings are not going to get connections, and they don't even tear down the shield battery. It does draw PattyMac home, but PattyMac could just as quickly go back on the map. It actually looks like PattyMac might now be in danger of waffling too much and playing too defensive. That might also give eGGz an opportunity to, well, at least max out, and then we'll see what happens with the engagement. But I feel like if PattyMac moved out right here, right now, you know, him in the better supply, that's just never going to be a big victory for the Zerg. But maxed out, it could be different. I'm hoping that PattyMac moves out. He should be able to win this game after all the damage he did.
Yeah, his single DT is going to go full swipey mode on these banelings and give itself up. But yeah, 4 banelings for DT. Do we take that ZG? Not sure. No. Don't love it.
No. No, I don't think so. Silly DT, shouldn't have done that. eGGz is seeing the encroaching army, you know, hovering around the edge of... Okay. Dude, I get this done. I have this happen to me so often, I swear. Like, not a single ling against a pylon versus a DT, but just the idea that the units get choked up around that pylon near the Vespian gas so often.
It's kind of wild, actually.
Yeah, it's Vespian, like, the Vespian geysers actually, I think, mess AI up more than we give them credit for.
Yeah, it's just obviously just some weird pathing going on with the position of everything, and the wall not quite being, I guess, fully completed, and but walled off, but not quite. You know, it's weird. Fight on the map is, I don't know if eGGz is necessarily aware of the fact he's about to take a fight here. Bane's all rolled in on the left side. PattyMac is in a bit of an odd spot. He does get surrounded pretty heavily. He needs some of these Archons to start taking the brunt of the damage at the front. He did a lot of damage, PattyMac, right? The Colossi were firing throughout this. Stalkers were tanking Banelings. And it was definitely egg supply that plummeted, and his rebuild isn't going very well. He's got lava. He now spends some money on Banes, but he could definitely do with spending the rest of the lava on Lings, and he does start that up. So he brings back to even supply. That still ain't great, and he's still down on work as he needs to find efficiency. Just don't feel like we're doing that. Maybe some Banes into mineral lines would be the answer for him. Just slow down the economy of PattyMac if he can't get his own up and running.
2 Colossus also lived through that, which PattyMac, it could replace at least one more if you wanted to, but also build up an Archon count would work out too. Overall, decently handled by PattyMac, who, yeah, definitely took the better trade there, just with everything else going on. And if he just goes for a bunch more Archons, I imagine the next fight will be even simpler. He did have to control his army a decent bit there. eGGz thinking that he caught him off guard, not exactly true. Now trying to find him out of position. Not necessarily happening, but there are Banelings in that 3rd base alongside this attack. Nice Warp Prism Micro coming in to save this Colossus once again. The Archons are tanking a ton of Baneling shots. I assume that the Colossus will live. It's awfully close. Where's the shield battery, for the love of God? But 32 probes have died.
Yeah, we got a lot of probe kills. The obstacle started with the Banelings into that 3rd base and then continuing through with this one. However, PattyMac comes out with a lot of army left over. The 2 Colossi begin to regenerate some shields, and there's even Archons that were pulled back and kept alive for so long as well. That was really a textbook way to kind of take this kind of engagement. This round of Banelings mostly goes off on a single Archon. That ain't it. And then it's just a couple of Lings, a couple of Roaches. It really ain't enough as PattyMac continues through. The Colossi get to fire up a Storm, and well, it's pretty much only Roaches left over towards the end here, and Stalkers obviously do well against those. Can we keep these Colossi alive? Yes, of course we can. PattyMac micros them effectively. Stalkers blink forward, and PattyMac ready to deal this killing blow to eGGz, as it was just a few too many units onto economy and not enough actually killing off this army.
eGGz really did try to fight back after a subpar opener, but PattyMac did not let this one slip. Maybe a little more passiveness, a little bit more of over-aggressiveness either direction, and I could see this game start to tumble. But PattyMac kept it in control, kept it in the lines, you know, and got the final GG in his favor. And with that game, do we heavily favor a player now?
With that game? Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
now,
I favor PattyMac, yeah.
Now, eGGz has to fight against the 0-2 curse, because no one's actually not gone 0-2 in Americas yet. So, yes, now I've just realized I think I take PattyMac. He can't lose this now. Keep the streak alive. More seriously, I think PattyMac just played very solid, right? He did do damage early. He put himself in a good place, yes. feel like his macro game was very good beyond that. Like, yeah, it was a bit waffly maybe in the middle, and he could have got it done sooner. But his defense was what it needed to be. He never really took like an egregiously bad fight or anything, right? So I think I kind of like PattyMac going into game 2. Dragon scales the map as well. Maybe a great time to bring out even more depth. So, and maybe I like it even more.
It's always a good time to bring out adepts.
Well, yes, of course it is, but you know, I mean, if you put it like that, eGGz very takes away from the map, but sure, it's always a good time to bring out adepts.
Yeah, yeah. I did ask because I honestly didn't think eGGz looked truly terrible. I think eGGz really could have had a much worse follow-up from the subpar opener. Like, he let the subpar opener happen the way that it did, and obviously that was worse specifically against that, but yeah, I didn't think it was so one-sided, and I even saw a couple of holes in PattyMac's play that maybe eGGz could get around to abusing if he wasn't just kind of naturally 20 supply behind what he should be. We'll see if I'm right. So in the bottom right, up 1, it is PattyMac.
In the top left, Blue Zerg, it is eGGz.
I can't help but think of the Pokemon when it's all the eggs. I have eggs.
You can't help but think of Pokemon eggs? Wait, what?
Pokemon that is all eggs.
Oh, Executor.
Executor?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one. Whenever I see eggs. No, not you? Oh, yo, okay, I got a complaint. All right, I got a Pokemon-related complaint. You're the perfect person to complain to.
Go on then.
Okay, all right, here we go. So I was showing my nephew a bunch of Switch games, right? So we're on this N64 emulator, and I played the original Pokemon Snap just because it was there, and I had undownloaded the new one. And did you know that it is naturally inverted camera controls, and you cannot change it?
On the original Pokemon Snap?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's my complaint. That was some BS.
I've not played. I can't lie. I've not played it recently enough to have noticed.
Well, that's understandable, but you know, it's still kind of fun. And even though the graphics are much worse, it is fun. But the inverted camera really bothered me.
That when we played it when we were young, we didn't care because as kids we would just learn to adapt and just do it. Whereas now we want to be mega efficient. Everything has to be perfect. We're just given too many options in life nowadays. That's the takeaway from this.
Yo, I'm serious, man. I'm gonna go full boomer here, all right? Like, when we were kids, we really did suck up, like, anything, right? We were just this game is horribly imbalanced and no one could ever beat it. Like, Battletoads, or, like, the Lion King game. Whatever, I'm still gonna play it because, you know, there's Lion King and I like Lion King. We just dealt with it, man.
Yeah, nowadays, it just ain't the same.
Yeah, it really isn't.
This is why we like StarCraft. That's why we like StarCraft, because StarCraft is the because we're old and it's difficult. we don't shy away from it. Yeah.
I love it. I hope that Artosis's prediction comes true. I don't know if you've ever heard him talk about this, but he says it's bound to be cyclical. Like, it's bound to be that we go from crappy, easy games back to like difficult games that use your mind.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I hope so, Artosis.
We go full circle. What if in like 30 years it's just really cool to play StarCraft 2? You know, like if people like, this game was actually the game.
Like retro?
Yeah, like retro StarCraft 2 is actually like the bomb.
Dude, that'd be so awesome. We'd come back from like pseudo retirement, 50-year-old.
ZG, remember
back in my days there.
Back in my days, ZG pretended to be a Rattata. Wayne's on his 25th name change of the of his EPT.
And still hasn't evolved to Eradicate, so disappointing.
He's gone back to like 4 different Pokemon names, but never an evolution, you know? Like.
I just, you know, people are like asking me to do a drunk stream when I'm 55 years old. And I'm like, all right, guys.
All right, one shot.
Fantastic.
All right. Yeah, no. It'd be fun. PattyMac has an Oracle. Oh, Stargate opener. I'm glad I'm paying attention, ZG.
I know, right? It's a Oracle opener into a 3-hatch setup for the Zerg, so I prefer thinking about this awesome future that we were talking about, opposed to this sub 4-minute game.
To be fair, PvZ early game, it really is. If there's Oracles, not much else going on. I mean, second Oracle. Will we see a third? Usually we do. We haven't started up straight away, though, so I'm a little bit questioning. Oh, there we go. It's the same as every time.
Eggs is just trying to be a bother, denying the third base that he knows will be gotten from this opener. And, well, the Oracle stay at home. It's not nearly as likely to happen. The only benefit really, or the only downside, sorry, of PattyMac keeping his Oracles at home isn't even necessarily the missed damage, because let's assume that Eggs does defend well. It's actually kind of like the lack of information. So if Eggs was doing something aggressive, this could be bothersome. But you know what? If the Oracles don't even defend the third base, then what the heck are they even here for?
Yeah.
Ladies.
That was questionable. How did we not keep the third alive? Oracle's literally sat overhead. That's horrible for PattyMac. I mean, that's a massive delay. He has not restarted it until just now. Major delay on this third base, and that's got to give Eggs a big chunk of hope.
I mean, it's good that he got it, because honestly, that was a fair dedication to non-drone units. I didn't even think it was that many lings. Whoops. He's got 10, and then he lost 16. Oh, no, 26 is a decent amount. Okay. Well, still, then that means he had to do damage. Unfortunately, he did. He got the cancel, he got the reboot on the third Nexus, but he is still behind, even a bit further now that the Oracles did a flyby. 6 more drones killed with the help of, the Adepts at the third base that get recalled, so 2 of them will end up living to help defend that third base from further attacks. Well, yeah, Eggs might have gotten the third cancel a couple times, but still hurting on the economy.
Yeah, down 14 workers is actually brutal. I mean, we're still on Overlord speed, Roach speed, but then there's a few drones, and that's what I was afraid of. I was like, well, maybe I could believe you're just going to spam units and go with those upgrades. But the few drones make me feel as though that's not actually the plan. Unless we just get to like 44 or so, and then we just spam units. I feel like with the drone count being where it is, it has to be some amount of aggression sometime soon, and now we are seeing nothing but unit production. So Eggs is going to set up to just fully send this, and, well, it's up to PattyMac to defend. Third base is up. Extra gates coming down. Templar Archives on the way. No charge just yet. Do you think he has a way to hold this CG? He does revelate, so you'll see if these queens want to continue moving forward. He also has the spot on Ravager Morph, and Roach is coming through, so yeah, he knows what's coming his way. He's going to start adding on extra sag defense, but it might be a little bit too late to get that going on the front of the third right now.
Yeah, I'm afraid that the actual ground army is still a little underprepared for this, even though Eggs doesn't have nearly as much of a buildup as he would like, considering all the economy he lost out on. It still is a decent amount of units. Oracles, 5 of them now down to 4, lots of them without energy, too, because they've been used so frequently. But it looks like PattyMac, just with that initial denial, that initial pullback, at least buys time to get more Stalkers. His gateways are finally finishing, and Stalkers with Blink could definitely do something, but it's not Blink that's finishing, it's Charge. So where are the charge slots?
Yeah, exactly right. I'm like, yay, Stalkers, and then I'm like, oh no, not Stalkers, because yeah, there's no Blink at all, and I don't think this is going to be a great ending if you don't have Blink. The third base right now is being given up, and Eggs seemingly has done enough to set PattyMac back and to just control this game. You know, for a moment I was like, oh, the 5 Oracles, they fly in, the Queens win on creep, no transfusions. It's like, oh, actually, that's just a lot of Queens, so it didn't really matter. And with that, PattyMac is pretty much just dying out in this game. Eggs has a little bit too much of this one. He's going to catch the Zealot run by, so that's going to be a surround and a kill. And PattyMac says, yeah, but if you get those, you've got the game. And we are going to a Game 3 for the first time this season in the Americas region.
Hey! Good on Eggs for defeating that curse. Good on him. Good old all in on a bit of a shorter map, third base to third base. Never hurt anyone. Will never hurt any Zerg, I suppose. Works against Protoss pretty well sometimes.
It does, doesn't it? It does indeed. All right, 1-1. We're tied up. I'm very excited about that. I think you were right coming out of that game. I wanted to say Eggs looked good, right, and still, you know, made it a game out of, you know, what it was. And this time, you know, one of the things he did really well last time was catching the probe on the third base a couple times over, and he was really good on the third base at PattyMac, which really opened us up into this. So, yeah, just some cool stuff from Eggs, and definitely things I think PattyMac can look at and say, okay, need to be better there to not let that happen again going into a Game 3.
Well, PattyMac definitely lets a lot of things slip by that game. And then I do wonder if he mistakenly warped in Stalkers. Not that I'm convinced Zealot Warpins would have been enough. That was just too much Zerg army, but...
Yeah, I think the idea was okay, where if you can get the Stalkers to survive the Lings, the Stalkers are definitely better against the Roaches and the Queens in those kind of numbers. Because if you warp in like 6 Zealots, it's like, cool, you have like a frontline-ish of units. Like, if you have like 20 Zealots, I think they do very well. But if you have 6 Zealots, I think I'd rather have the 6 Stalkers, even if they... Obviously, I'd rather them have Blink, but... I don't think 6 charge zealots are really going to change anything either, so maybe the best of a bad situation.
That's certainly true. Yeah, certainly. But like I said, already losing a decent amount in the early stages. It did. I think eGGz was very close to not being able to hit with a powerful enough army because of the economic damage if he didn't literally go right then and there. Right, and then PattyMac has all of his gateways finished with 2 warp-ins instead of just like barely 1 at the very last second. It could have been different, but eGGz did what he had planned on doing, went for the all-in. It worked out, and now we're on Royal Blood for game number 3. Top rights, it is the loser, eGGz.
In the bottom left-hand side, our red Protoss player, PattyMac. Swiss system's working. We finally have a game 3 in America. The games are getting closer.
The Swiss system is finally working.
Yeah.
After 4 days, we have a game 3.
Right, but this is the first day of round 2, right? So, in theory, this is the point where each region gets a little bit better. And I would say it's true here in Americas, at least. And, Europe was pretty competitive as well. Yeah, I'm down. I'm believing.
No. Sure. I do think it is. I just think that the 16 players in America are very competitive. There are more expected winners than others, but considering how even the likes of Scarlet will fall against her North American counterparts and Special will fall against his Latin American counterparts, I don't think it suddenly is impossible for them to lose to, Scarlet loses to Latin America and Special loses to North America. I think that is very possible. So you got an order. You definitely got an order. Maybe Special Estrella Scarlet or Estrella Special Scarlet, I guess, depending on like their practice and form and whatnot. But then you have a lot of hopefuls, which is really awesome to see, because I do think for a while we were quite worried about North America just literally being nothing but the top 4 competitive players facing each other over and over and over again. But even at that point, I still thoroughly enjoyed watching the people who were, maybe part-time, still duking it out. I feel like there was maybe that time around like Jon Snow leaving and Namshar was still involved in the North America scene that I was like, not the best games.
Yeah.
But in the last year, I've thoroughly enjoyed the Americas.
Yeah, Americas has been fun. But I think the thing is, it's right. It's like a lot of America was fun. It was just, you kind of knew who top 4 would be. And so we'd have a lot of the games where it'd be like, okay, that's just going to happen. But there was still a lot of fun games in amongst that. And now, in this format, we get to see, a few more of those games that were kind of the fun ones instead of just the, okay, you guys go on through. And yeah, sometimes it's an upset, but it doesn't matter that much because you win the rest of the games. So, yeah. I mean, there was that one time that Neep started like 0-3 in the group and then just, still won the entire season as well, right? Like, and that was like the most exciting North America had been in like a year and a half at that point. It was like, Neep might go out. And we ran that story for about a week straight as he won 4 more matches and then won the entire tournament. We're like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, no, you definitely knew who top 3 certainly was, but I still found a lot of fun in the likes of, PattyMac versus Nina or Scarlet versus Future and all that good stuff. Yeah, so that still stayed the same, and I think will stay the same now that we have some of the more Latin American players coming in, like eGGz, who is managing to break the curse of the 2 zeros. Once again, playing some heavy Ling style to really interrupt PattyMac's process of getting to 3rd base. PattyMac should be much more on guard this time around to make sure that doesn't happen. Like, those hiccups really bother a Protoss player in terms of like where the pylons are going. Do they get supply blocked? Do the oracles stay at home? Do they go across the map? It doesn't sometimes it isn't a lot if the Protoss does perfectly hold against the Ling pressure, and then it's absolutely a problem for the Zerg who's spent money on Lings on drones. But if it starts that snowball, PattyMac's gonna be very annoyed again.
Yeah, absolutely. The Lings grab a probe here. The Nexus looks pretty safe. Rotron coming up immediately here from eGGz as well, despite knowing it's a Rotron. Despite knowing it's an Oracle, he's just going to get that Rotron set up anyways to give himself some options here in terms of what he would like to build. And Lings is going to go back onto the map. 2 Oracles will go hunting. And there's a couple of Queens here, but still potential to nab some drones on the edges. Taking a couple shots early. Now we go in, we get 1. Going to head to the main, but there is a lot of Queens in the main, so that's a no-go zone.
Yeah, don't go over there. PattyMac so far, actually getting his third base up and running as flawlessly as you can. The link pressure wasn't as much as the last game. Is in a good spot. Then you should also be very wary of some of these very like early all-ins, not super early, not cheeses, but earlier. And the Oracles should absolutely be focusing on that scouting. So gases, drone counts, and literally just what is walking across the map. Right now, eGGz just recovering the drone count. Finally catching up with the workers, and then going for a lair. No evolution chamber, though, to start up any type of upgrade. I mean, do you think he could go into something aggressive after that lair's done?
Yeah, but I don't know what, right? Like, you saw roach speed, and then... I was gonna say, if that Oracle gets out alive, that's incredible. Yeah, I don't really know, and you see PattyMac going into, like, a ton of gateways, charge. Yeah, I'm not really sure where we're headed. I mean, it seems aggressive. There's an Evo chamber now, so maybe just take the upgrade late and just kind of work from there. Ling's not doing much at the front either, by the way. As you do see, all these gates finishing. Do we just send this as, like, a ton of zealots, or are we going to add a Temple Archives on? Because I feel like that's kind of missing at the moment, no?
And a Robo. No War Prism.
Yeah.
So... yeah, I'm like a little confused on both sides, but I'm also totally willing to admit that I'm kind of used to the fast +1 melee at this point for a lot of Zerg openers. So maybe I've just forgotten what it feels like to get a good old natural +1 missile. Just some solid Ling Roach. All right. For PattyMac, not having a Robo to get a War Prism or Immortals to send across the map, that feels weird. Also, PattyMac continuing to produce Oracles after these ones have been not super successful. This is 5 in total because he lost the 1, right? And now he's going on to a 6th. Yeah. That's a bit memey.
It is, but I actually kind of like it against someone who's currently just on Roach Ling, and for a while it will work out, and it will stop eGGz from being able to be aggressive with just Roach Ling, unless you bring the Queens, and then obviously it's a bit of a different question. There's a group of Zealots over here. I do not think I like that. The Oracles are going to show up on the other side and start dealing damage to Roaches, and okay, this is a fight. It's an engagement. I do not think it's going to be one that works for PattyMac, and I stand by that, watching his units die and do nothing.
I think what PattyMac was hoping more so to find
was
roaches? Either... Well, I was going to say units that weren't together, right? Okay. So the Queens are all apart from each other. The Roaches haven't been built yet. They're just like spiraling into the Zealots. The thing is that it's because there's no War Prism behind this, the charge lot numbers aren't insane to begin with. It's not 40 to begin with. They're going to get thinned out kind of inevitably, and I wonder how much you really have to jump on the Zerg to actually snowball with that, because I assume that's what happens when PattyMac does this to other people, and that he snowballs. It's like the weirdest timing ever, and the Zerg's like, what the hell, man? But that wasn't it. eGGz just, pulled his Roaches back a little bit, had his Queen stand their ground, and now PattyMac, I don't know, looks just awkward, but not necessarily totally behind.
Yeah, I think my issue with it is I just could have seen so much success if there was like 2 Archons and the Prism. And then that first like Ripper Roaches he runs into, it's like, oh, cool. I wrap around you, you can't get away, Archon fire, and actually maybe it does snowball. There was just so little actually there from PattyMac to begin with. It was a very strange attack, to say the least. He is moving around the left side with a group of units now, Oracles around the right, but at this point we're making Roach Hydra, Hive on the way. I think it's kind of gone of the days, a Zealot-based attack is going to see serious success.
You know what? I think PattyMac is actually copying a build from Hero that Hero did on this map. The thing is, I am getting such severe deja vu because this hatch goes down at the most random ass timing too. Just like, well, this didn't work for PattyMac, but also he's killing 2 hatcheries, so shut up. Like, okay. Is that Hero, I think, was actually playing defensive. It was this weird game on this map. Dark was actually going to all in him, or wasn't, and then was, or whatever it was, and then Hero was like, well, I built like a bajillion Oracles and a bajillion Zealots, so I guess I got to go across the map. And Dark was like, wait, what? What are you doing? I don't really know if it ever really was a build, but PattyMac kind of doing the same thing in terms of just like, what are you doing? Why do you have so many Oracles? Why are you attacking me with both these units? Why are 2 armies on either side of the map? And at least found 1 hatchery kill, did not find the other one. Overall, still a weird position for PattyMac to be in, because that's really the best I can put it. It's weird. It's not necessarily totally dead, but it is weird.
Yeah, no, it's strange, weird. Pick your phrase for it. I'm confused and perplexed, but The game goes on, and PattyMac is getting up to disruptors, which I believe are good enough to potentially, stand his ground here, take him to a later stage of this game still, and to see some deeper parts of it. So, I like it, disruptors are good, and also we're still sending zealots around the map, which is a very typical part of PvZ, so I think that's likely going to see some success as well. As Roach Hydra comes around the left, is going to move up this ramp and start pushing into this base. A couple pylons already dropping down.
That is a giant number of zealots to go for a run by. That is intimidating. They really should try to spread out as much as possible, which they're not necessarily doing right now. PattyMac actually focusing on the engagements, which eGGz is a little late to responding by the evidence of the blood on the ground, so I think a disruptor got a pretty good hit. 17 drones did still go down, so perhaps there was some focus fire at the very least before those roaches finally cleaned things up. Overall, killing a handful of queens, all of those drones, and divvying up the army, and dividing eGGz attention. Yeah, wrap that all together. Yeah, okay, those zealots were very successful.
They were, weren't they? Now Oracle's going to dive this right side. They go after the Spore, and they see the drones running, so they're like, okay, we'll go after you guys, but there's going to be Hydras to defend, and one of the Oracles goes down. So that wasn't maybe the greatest part of all of this. However, it's still just, a few good moments from PattyMac in general, and at first I really liked the Roach Hydra army because it was like, okay, you're fighting against most of these zealots and stuff, but now there's disruptors and everything. We need to see that next layer of tech, and we've got 4 Vipers out. We need to see these in the fights. We need to see abducts on disruptors. That's going to be absolutely important. Templar started warping. Feedbacks, of course, to counter those Vipers, but also we're eventually going to end up on Storm here, so a good couple of reasons to build those. As this time the big chunk of Zealots on the left might be caught by Roaches, but we also have the major fight about to break out over on the bottom right.
Say those roaches almost got caught by the zealots, to be honest. Well, the High Templar, it's such a grand opportunity to get 2 feedbacks. Just the one. Looks like both of them kind of looking away from the main armies for a hot second. Disruptors are going to get abducted. There's still quite a few more actually beyond that. Yep, almost every single one getting abducted. Very late. Oh, jeez. God, good lord. Disruptor in the back threw a ball that almost hit the own Protoss army. But the disruptors have not cleared out the actual Zerg one, and it is once again the zealots to the rescue, trying to cause as much damage as possible, as well as stasis traps. Okay, everything combined together, PattyMac is going to live another day and do a tremendous amount of damage to his opponent's economy.
Yeah, doing so much damage, it really puts eGGz all in. But you know what? eGGz is up 80 army supply. That is a huge number. We're picking up some bits and pieces right now, and we need to keep on doing that. You need to fight this army separated, because you can't fight half army supply. I don't care if it's against Roaches and Hydras and they're not so good, because you did just have a lot of your own tech reset. Because I'd say PattyMac's doing a pretty good job of, at the very least, buying time. The Oracles are going to try and be a distraction as well. He's chasing on the left side. Again, very aware that he wants to pick away at just lower unit counts where he can, because that's where this army is still designed to see success.
I thought those were zealots going across over there, but apparently it was the oracles, which maybe it would have been better back at home, still slapping down stasis traps. These stasis traps have actually helped to save PattyMac's life. I don't know, without any stasis traps, I think PattyMac might already be dead, but he got at least 2 that got a good chunk of the army, plus the distraction of the zealots, and then a few more just to help him a little bit. Now the oracles are all gone, so they can't even get those revelations, give them the heads up to send those disruptors out. PattyMac now going into some immortals, just basically a sturdier army that can kind of go toe-to-toe. But missing that splash damage could be too big of an issue. Still a humongous supply lead for eGGz as well as he tears down the 3rd base. It looks like PattyMac not going to have enough at home to actually hold on here.
Yeah, that was the shortest yoink ever from a Viper as the Immortal goes on a little hop over to the Zerg army. That one's a little bit longer. That's another dead Immortal, and it's going to be enough. eGGz. eGGz was obviously rallying through the other side as well, and eGGz